The Pan-Academic Year Matric 2020, a panel discussion hosted by Tahiya Wadiwala on Sunday, the 13th of December 2020 at 10 a.m. with special guests Nomusa, Cembi, SADTU spokesperson and media officer, Yusuf, Deputy President of Northwest Schools SRC 2019, as well as Yasira Moolla, the head of mathematics at Project O. Radio Islam International, the world is our community.
ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. It's just gone 30 minutes past the hour of 10 and you are tuned into Radio Islam International. This is the panel discussion program and I am your host Tahiya Wadiwala. Joining me today, we have panelist Yusuf, who is the Deputy President of the Northwest SRC Deputy President, as well as the Deputy Head Boy at War School Zidist. Secondly, we have Yasira Moolla, who is the Head of Mathematics at Project O, which is a youth-based and youth-run organization. And lastly, we have Nomusa Cembi, who is the spokesperson of SADTU. So the topic that I've chosen for today is the Pan-Academic Year Matric 2020. I'm fortunate to have another matriculant with me on it besides myself. And then we have Yasira, who is a teacher, I believe, a mathematics teacher as well. And Nomusa is joining us as well as part of SADTU. Good morning and thank you all for joining me today.
Good morning, Tahiya, and good morning to Radio Islam listeners.
Now, I'm going to start with you, Yusuf. Kindly introduce yourself a bit more and just tell me what was the year like for you as part of your student this year?
It was an intense year. I think it was a very difficult year to be a matric student. And I feel like I could have done better in a different year. But I also believe myself and a lot of my peers rose to the occasion, despite it being very difficult, despite us missing out on the social aspect of matric, as well as proper learning and normal exam conditions.
Of course. And you, Sister Yasira, as a teacher, what would you like to move from having to work with in-person classes to going online? And I understand that not every school was privileged enough to have the means to quickly jump onto online classes. And tell me, did you guys have to do that quickly? What was it like?
Okay, so I'm going to speak in terms of Project O. How that is run is we usually had in-person classes, we had volunteers come in and things like that. And then when it was announced that we're going into a hard level 5 lockdown, it became extremely difficult because what we had to do in a matter of a couple of days, all the head tutors had to scramble around and put together note packs for our learners. Because with Project O, we work in an underprivileged school and the majority of those learners don't have access to internet, phones, things like that, let alone a calculator. So we scrambled around, put together notes for them and tried our utmost best to make it easier for them like that. With regards to school, we tried our best. Our school didn't make it compulsory for everyone to join online classes. However, a few teachers did have online classes and we resorted to WhatsApp groups to communicate with the learners, offer advice and answers to questions like that. Overall, I think the experience was just really, really taxing on the learners, especially those that didn't have access to this kind of data and things like that. It just made it far more difficult for them.
Of course. And Sister Nomusa, coming to you, as part of SADTU, when they quickly announced that, okay, when Minister Angie said that schools will be closed from, I think it was the 18th of March. And as part of the Teachers Union and the Teachers Association, what was that like? Sister Nomusa, you're muted.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. When the minister announced that schools would be closed, in fact, we were the first to to announce that schools should be closed, taking into account what we were seeing happening around the world and what we were seeing in our situation in South Africa. And so we were happy that the minister was one among the first ministers to say that there should be a closure of schools. And when the general lockdown was announced, we were already under that impression that schools should be closed. But I remember when that happened, there was quite a bit of a problem as to whether, because the minister had said schools should close, but teachers should report. So there was a bit of a problem as to whether should teachers go for further 2 days or what. But teachers applied and went for further 2 days just to wrap up, because we understand that the announcement was quite sudden.
Of course. A quick message to our listeners: you are more than welcome to join in on the discussion and to share your thoughts with us. Many parents are, of course, listening. The number to dial is 011 854 1548. Alternatively, you may WhatsApp your suggestions 072 786 1548. Right, so coming back to the next topic, when you said that the teachers were still forced to report to school, why is that so?
The department said they had to report in order to wrap up, because we understand that it was quite sudden. So they had to wrap up and come up with measures as to what was going to happen, how would teaching take place when there was a lockdown. But at that time, everyone thought that the lockdown would take only 21 days. And part of it was also linked to the holiday that was going to be there. But we didn't know at that time that it would last longer than the 21 days we had initially thought of.
So then after the 21 days, I remember that there was many hoaxes and many messages going around that matrics and grade 7s were going to report back on the 6th of May. And I think that was when SADTU took it up and said that, no, it shouldn't be, and whatever. Can you give us more information regarding that?
After that, as a union, we looked at the issue of safety of the learners and all the people who work at schools and the teachers. So when we looked around and looked at the regulations that were there to ensure safety, we differed with the department and insisted that the department should ensure, together with the Department of Health, should ensure that schools were conducive to learning under those conditions. We had to ensure that there was enough water, there was enough social distancing, all measures that were there to ensure safety in schools were there. But unfortunately, we did several surveys with the schools to find out if they were ready, if all the precautionary measures were in place. And unfortunately, in most of the schools at that time, proper precautionary measures were not in place. And also at that time, the COVID or the pandemic was also rising. So on those bases, we had to weigh between the health and the right to access education. And we felt that the department should do more to ensure that places of learning were at a standard where conducive learning could take place under safe conditions.
Yes, of course, because safe conditions is the main priority in all of this. Coming to you, Yusuf, in terms of mental health, I'm sure you discussed this amongst your friends, etc. What was it like for yourself personally and your friends as well when, with the whole pandemic and as a matric student, finding out that, okay, I've got to now try to figure this out by myself. I might not have all the resources possible at home, but to complete the year, I need to do something. What was that like for you?
So personally, Alhamdulillah, I'm privileged. I have whatever resources I needed were at my disposal. Yeah. But I go to a school that's a former Model C school. and my class comprises of a range of people from different backgrounds. So I had friends who didn't have data. They couldn't access the WhatsApp groups. And I think that this just widened the gap that was already there. And then exams. Matrix have been basically studying and writing for the past 4 months nonstop.
Of course.
Um, and that's taken a huge toll on even on me. It was a very stressful time in my life. I'm so glad that it's over now. But I did suffer bouts of anxiety during this year. I know friends who have mental health issues. This really took a toll on them, and I feel like the department wasn't conscious of this fact. Um, and I understand the pandemic; it was new. No one really knew what they were doing, but this is a common problem where the learners are always left behind. Our mental health, our needs are not taken into account.
Of course. Okay, so my engineer has just hinted to me that we will be going for a quick break. So stay tuned and we will continue this discussion after.
The Pan Academic Year Matric 2020, a panel discussion hosted by Tahiya Wadiwala on Sunday, the 13th of December 2020 at 10 a.m. with special guests Nomusa Cembi, SADTU spokesperson and media officer, Yusuf, Deputy President of Northwest Schools SRC 2019, as well as Yasira Moolla, the head of mathematics at Project O. Radio Islam International, the world is our community.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh and welcome back to Radio Islam International. It is just gone 35 minutes past the hour of 10. You are listening to the weekly panel discussion with myself, Tahiya Wadiwala. So the topic that we were discussing today was the Pan Academic Year Matric 2020, and joining me on the line, I've got panelists Nomusa Cembi, who is the spokesperson of SADTU, Yusuf, Bhyat, and Yasira Moolla. I tried to contact one of the spokespersons from the Department of Education. However, she has declined her invite and has not been able to, has made herself unavailable for this interview. Nevertheless, let us continue with the interview. So we were discussing the Pan Academic Year and Lockdown 2020. Coming to you, Yasira, we know that one of the, as part of the 10 a.m. news headlines that were made, the whole topic of the leaks and all of that. As a teacher, what was that like, knowing that your students would probably have to rewrite mathematics?
I think it was scary, not really for me, but for my students. Some of our top students at school said that they're going to try and they're going to study and things like that. But at the end of the day, they know that they gave their all on the day when they wrote their maths paper. And now to rewrite, they're mentally exhausted, they're physically exhausted. They know themselves that they're not going to get everything that they expected. And then for the other students said that they gave away some of their notes, some of them handed in textbooks. So it was really scary and stressful thinking about what they have to go through to re-prepare for these subjects, even though it wasn't their fault. They were not part of these leaks and things like that.
Of course. And Yusuf, as a student yourself who potentially had to rewrite 2 papers, explain what went through your mind at that time.
Initially, I was very frustrated, very angry. I was angrily tweeting away all my frustrations. Then eventually I calmed down and I realized that I should take it as an opportunity. I should think of it as an opportunity to do better, which was very difficult. I was very anxious. And because of my anxiety and the uncertainty of whether we were actually going to rewrite, I just couldn't get myself to my desk to start studying. And I think that many students share this sentiment that we were just out of the mindset. We were exhausted.
Of course, we were most definitely exhausted. I mean, as you mentioned previously, that we had been writing exams for almost 4 months now. And these weren't like sample tests or whatever, they were proper full-scale exams. So, of course, I most certainly do understand when it comes to that aspect. Nomusa, as part of SADTU, what were the teachers like in terms of the rewrite?
The teachers were very much frustrated with the announcement, and then as a union, as SADTU, we felt that we should challenge this based on the fact that we felt it was unfair to both the learners, and it was based on inconclusive evidence, because the department met with the unions and explained, you know, the results of the initial investigations. And from that results, the majority of the unions and even the MECs of education of all the provinces, no, except in the province of Western Cape and Northwest, everyone felt that there was no need for a rewrite based on the initial investigation, which showed that the number of learners who may have had access to the paper were very low. They were about between 195 to 200. So on that, there was no basis for all the learners to rewrite the paper. But the department initially was also of the idea that there should be no rewrite. But Umalusi, the quality assurance body, said they were not going to certify those two papers unless there was a rewrite. Then we felt it was unfair for Umalusi to get into that and force the department to take such a decision. But we are happy that the court ruled in our favor.
Yes, of course. I think this past week where we all sat glued to our TVs watching the court cases and finally waited for the good news, which took quite long on Friday afternoon. But I guess good news sometimes does take a while to come. As we conclude in the last 10 to 15 minutes of the show, any other sort of advice you'd like to give, Yasira, to the current matriculants of 2020 and those who have the current matriculants of 2020 who have just completed their exams, as well as next year's matriculants who are yet to start matric and have watched the whole rewrite situation, and they've watched their peers go through all the stresses of having to potentially rewrite. What would you say to them?
Firstly, I'd like to congratulate this year's class of 2020 to go through something like this and have this whole exam matric pressure with you. Allah alone knows how you people survived this, and congratulations to all of you guys for doing that. To next year's matriculants, I think it's going to be really difficult, and I'm saying this as a teacher because I know that we've cut out so many things from the syllabus, so it's going to be so difficult to catch up on all of those things and the exam pressure, and we still don't even know what this COVID pandemic has to unfold. So I'm wishing every one of them the best, and that they should just keep their head in the game and try their best.
Yes, of course. I think just giving it your all is the most you can do. Yusuf, any advice you'd like to give?
To next year's matriculants and to all students, in fact, including the matric class of 2020, I want to say, continue holding those in power to account, because the pandemic did cause a lot of problems. But at some point, we need to realize and we need to confront the fact that the education system is broken. And this isn't the first time that the system is failing us. I'd also like to tell them to persevere, because this year taught us that if you give it your all, you can achieve what you want, your goals. And yeah, we are the leaders we've been waiting for. We can't sit back and expect others to do what needs to be done.
Yes, of course. And to you, Nomusa?
I would say, you know, I agree with what has been said. The year was a tough one, and we commend learners and the teachers for doing all they could do in order to ensure that they complete the syllabus, they prepare learners, and learners are prepared for the exams. I know it was hard because the year also showed the gaps that are there in our education system, the gaps between those who have and those who have not. And we commend those, even those who do not have as much, for not giving up and say, no, we did not have access to internet, or we did not have access to online learning. But they all said, we will do our best. And the teachers came and said, we will assist you to the best of our ability. There were camps, there were morning classes, there were afternoon classes, there were Saturday classes, and everybody came in to do their best. We hope, you know, the efforts will come out in the results. We hope for the best. We hope for a good result.
Of course, and I'd like to also take this opportunity to thank my teachers personally for sacrificing all their time. We've had weekend classes, we've had Sunday classes, public holidays. They've spent hours past midnight sending us messages of hope, of encouragement, answering every single minuscule and minute question that we would have had in order to make sure that we were confident enough to go into that exam room and ready to write the paper. So for that, I'd like to congratulate. And I think not only my teachers did that, but every single teacher out there who took us as their own children, who sacrificed their own families to see to us, to see to the needs of the matriculants, who made dua for us, who did everything in their ability to ensure that class of 2020 will be class of 2020 at the end of it. Sister Musa, I've just got a question from a parent who's asked that many of the grade 11 syllabus was cut off, especially for mathematics. In terms of next year, what is the procedure that will be going forward, and how does the department plan to cover missed out work?
The syllabus was cut drastically.
Yes.
But meetings are still continuing between the department and the unions as stakeholders to work out what needs to be covered for next year for the matric class. I'm sure before schools open, it will be known exactly what parts need to be covered for the grade 12 class.
The grade 12 does. Coming to you, Yusuf. Last week you posted a video on YouTube. I hope you don't mind me saying this, but in which you were very vocal about your opinions regarding the potential rewrite and what a year it has been. Would you mind sharing some of that with us, please?
Yeah, no problem. So basically, my video that I took down, I addressed the fact that this rewrite situation of papers leaking, it's nothing new, and it's a symptom of a broken system. And I feel, and you'll hear on social media, people say that papers leaking, this isn't anything new. And I feel that because the pandemic forced us to become more connected, this was exposed. And I feel that we need to confront the fact that the department often does fail us. And not only the department, the education system as a whole. I mean, it shouldn't have taken a pandemic to get sanitation in these rural schools. It shouldn't have taken a pandemic to get children a proper flushing toilet. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like we need to look at the bigger picture and not just think, oh, will there be a rewrite? Will there not be a rewrite? Because if we don't confront this fact, we're just going to be faced with this problem time and time again. I also feel like we don't realize who the main stakeholders in the system are. It's the learners. Sorry about.
Okay, I think we've just lost Yusuf for a moment there. Coming back to you, are you there? Okay.
Yes. I feel we need to realize that the learners are the main stakeholders in the system, and nothing for us without us. There are structures of student leadership. I mean, in these meetings, where were students involved? Was our input taken into account? Throughout the year, I've served on many leadership, in many leadership positions, and I've never been approached by the department. What are the learners saying about this? What's their view? And I've had peers that also served in these leadership positions, and they were also never approached. So I mean, what's the point of these leadership positions if the department isn't going to use them? Yeah.
Okay. I think what you summed up was more than perfect, that there are many gaps in the system, and most certainly a pandemic. It should never have taken a pandemic for the department to act quickly. And even though that they've acted quickly, it hasn't been swift enough. And we've still seen so many cases where schools were still left without proper sanitation. There were many places where sanitizers weren't delivered on time. So yeah, it most definitely has been a taxing year, and I doubt that next year would be anything better than this. But we hope for the best, and we hope that what's to come of it will be great in future. Any parting words from everyone here? Nomusa, you can go first. Nomusa?
Hello.
Hello,
Yes, I'm here. Yes. As a parting shot, I tend to agree with what Yusuf has said, that it shouldn't have taken a pandemic to ensure that we have proper sanitation in our schools and all. And even though the pandemic has come, yes, there's been some change, but it's still not enough. The gaps are still there. And the pandemic has highlighted the gaps that were there in our education system. We hope that in the 21 academic year, the department will have to do its best to ensure that those gaps are shortened, and we see equality and equity in our education system.
Of course, I think that quality is the most important thing, and it's never ever about quantity, but more of a quality, that even if it means that a new syllabus has to be created, and a syllabus that is more adaptable to remote learning and adaptable to allow students to cope better in the outside world after completing matric. I think that's something that really should be looked upon and should be something for the near future. Sister Yasira, anything from you?
I think I also share the same sentiment as Yusuf and Nomusa. I also just wanted to add that at the end of the day, the education system as a whole and all the stakeholders should, especially those in power, should remember at the end of the day that this year we are educating people and that we have these students' lives in our hands. So try your utmost best, or you've been put in those positions, live up to those commitments and do what you have to do for these students. And in terms of those gaps that we're missing, I feel like mental health should be another thing that should be placed on a greater or more emphasis should be placed on that. We, of course, sanitation and basic right to education and water, and this year we needed sanitizer, and all those additional things are really important. But we also need to look at mental health and situations where the disadvantaged are far more disadvantaged because of their socioeconomic um, circumstances. Like, for example, with Project O, we go to school, yes, of course, alhamdulillah, they are getting meals from the school and things, but you just think about the situations that they come from. They don't even have food at home. So many of them take food in their lunch boxes to take back home to their siblings. So we need to be looking into situations like that and trying to make life easier for those learners. Okay.
Yes, of course. And I'd like to also take this moment to congratulate and thank Project O for all the work that they've done. I've been lucky to meet you now as the founder of Project O, and you guys have been doing such an excellent job. Please keep it up.
Jazakallah.
Okay, and lastly, coming to you, Yusuf, before we wrap up.
I would like, my closing remarks would be that we need to take responsibility as the public. Yes, the department has to remember, but we also need to be the ones who remind them. And I also think that we need to appreciate organizations like Project O, and we need to partner with them to do better. As Yasira said, socioeconomic issues, historical injustice, these things all need to be taken into account. And I think these are complex issues. They're not going to be resolved overnight, but we should be doing better. We should be demanding better. And I think we can do better. Thank you.
Thank you. And from that, it's just almost 55 minutes to the hour of 11. I thank you all for tuning in. I thank all of you guys for sacrificing your Sunday morning to have this discussion with me. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sending in your thoughts, your comments, etc. Until next time, from myself, Tahiya Wadiwala, fi amanillah, ma'assalam.